Hi, and welcome back to Aunt Susie's Kitchen. Today we're going to be making this unbelievable dessert. It's the one thing, probably more than anything, that ties me back to my childhood, and that's my mom's rice pudding recipe. And then, just to take it one step further, we've made a little cinnamon vanilla whipped cream that we're going to put on top, and it's going to be amazing. So let's gather our ingredients and head to the kitchen. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn my pan on medium. And I have a pan with rounded sides, and the reason why I have this is because when I whisk, I want to be able to get into the corners, because if you can't, you have to be really careful. It's very easy for your milk to burn otherwise. So I'm going to start by adding 4 cups of milk. And I have 1/2 a cup of sugar. And then I'm going to add 1/2 a teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to whisk all of this together. And you want to whisk until the sugar is completely dissolved. Okay, to that, I'm going to add my rice. Now, I have 3 ounces of rice that has been washed and rinsed. You can use whatever kind of rice you want. I'm using jasmine rice. Okay, and we're just going to stir that up. Now we're going to cook this for 20 minutes. It's going to come to a very low simmer, and we're going to leave the lid off while we cook it, and I'm going to stir it often, making sure that nothing sticks on the bottom. And then after 20 minutes, I'm going to turn the gas down even lower, and I'm going to put the lid on it, and I'm going to cook it for another 20 minutes with the lid on a very, very low gas. So this has been cooking for about 10 minutes, and I just want to show you what we're looking for. You really want to keep an eye on it at this point, because it could very easily scorch, and you definitely don't want it to scorch. But if I stop whisking, you'll see that it barely has little bubbles coming up on top. That's exactly what you're looking for. So every couple of minutes, give it a whisk, wipe the sides down. And that's your first 20-minute time period that you want to do this for. So we've got about 10 minutes left. And when this step is done, we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so 20 minutes is up. And I just want to show you, I've been whisking every couple of minutes, wiping down the sides, making sure nothing's sticking on the bottom. And it's funny because this almost looks like it's just a pot of milk that's boiling. You can see very little rice in here, but I promise you this is the perfect amount of rice for the amount of liquid that we have, because as the rice sits, it's going to continue to get bigger as it absorbs, and as this reduces, it's going to be the perfect ratio. It's funny, my mom had a couple of rice puddings in her cookbook, and the one up in the very front just said good rice pudding. You know, my mom would make her little notes, as I'm sure we all do in our cookbooks. And then all the way in the back, this recipe was there, and above rice pudding, it said best in big letters. And she wasn't kidding. This is without a doubt the best rice pudding that I have ever had. And I think my cousin Joanne gave it to her. So I'll give my cousin Joanne a shout out, because like I said, I think she's the one who gave this to my mom originally. I have changed it just a very little, and the only real change that I have made to it is, instead of using vanilla, I use a actual vanilla bean, and this is a Madagascar vanilla bean pod. And later on, when we make the custard part, I'm going to scrape all of the beans out, and we'll use that instead of regular vanilla. So now I've got the gas down as low as it will go. I'm going to put the lid on. I'm going to set a 20-minute timer, let this finish cooking, and then as this comes to, the timer goes off on this one, we'll start making the custard We'll temper the two together and then we'll finish this up. I can't stress enough that your gas has to be really, really low, the lowest point right now, because if you have it on too high, it will boil up and out and all over your stove. So setting that 20-minute timer and we'll see you then. Okay, our timer went off. And take the lid off of this. And at this point, I'm going to shut the gas off. You see how much this is reduced, and it's gotten nice and thick. And the rice is nice and plump. So we're going to move this out of the way because I need to make now the custard that's going to thicken this and give it that pudding-like consistency that you look for in rice pudding. So the first thing I'm going to pour in here is 5 ounces of heavy cream. And then I'm going to measure out 6 ounces of evaporated milk. Now, 2 things with evaporated milk. 1, make sure you shake it really well before you use it, because it has a tendency of separating. And 2, make sure you don't accidentally grab sweetened condensed milk instead of evaporated milk. You only want evaporated milk. And I'm going to add 1 egg. That. I'm going to whisk this all together. Okay, now I want to grab that Madagascar vanilla bean we talked about before. If you don't have vanilla bean, that's fine. Use a teaspoon of regular vanilla. And I always recommend a pure vanilla extract. Try not to use the artificial stuff. There's a lot of alcohol in that, and I don't even know what else they put in that. Okay. So you want to get everything out of the bean pod. And then I'm going to whisk it. You see all those pretty brown speckles in there? That's a great characteristic when you're making anything with fresh vanilla that you look for. Okay, so now we're going to temper the hot milk with the rice and this so that they come together slowly and the temperatures come to a medium temperature. So right now, this one boiled, it's well over 200 degrees. This one's room temperature, it's probably about 65 degrees. So I need to get them both to a point where they are an average temperature, and we do that by tempering. And so really all we're going to do is add a little bit of the very hot mixture very slowly to the room temperature mixture, a little bit at a time. So we did that gradually so that there was no sudden temperature change. And now what we have to do is we have to put the gas back on. And like any other custard, we have to cook it until it comes back to a soft boil. And then once it comes back to a soft boil, we're going to turn the gas down and let it simmer for at least 1 full minute. I'm going to let it simmer for at least 1 full minute after it comes back to a soft boil. So, same idea now. We're not trying to scramble those eggs, so we don't want to put it on blast. I've got it on a medium temperature. And I'm just going to keep it moving until the temperature starts to rise. That'll take about a minute or 2. And this is the step usually where everyone, if you're going to have a problem with rice pudding, this is one of the places you can have it, because if you don't bring it back to a boil here and let it boil for at least a minute, it's never going to thicken. You can pour it out and you're going to wind up with rice soup instead of rice pudding. I'm sure it will be very delicious, but it won't have that signature custard texture that you're looking for with rice pudding. It'll be very soupy and very loose. So this step here is vital. And like I said, I can feel it getting thicker. I'm just gonna stop for another second. See what's happening here. And I think I accidentally got a piece of the vanilla pod. Take that out of there. But I see all the speckles run through it. You know, if you ever bought French vanilla ice cream, it's got all those little black speckles throughout it. And that's the signature, you know, characteristic of something that has fresh vanilla bean in it. Okay, this is looking really good. So again, I'm just gonna keep it moving. And now that it's actually boiling, I'm going to set a 1 minute timer and I'm gonna let it continue to thicken and boil. Okay, so we've got a 1 minute timer. And I'll whisk it a little bit in between, but I really want to let this thicken up. Got about 30 seconds left. It's funny, my sister and I were talking last week and she said, I made Mommy's rice pudding, but it never thickened up. And I said, well, did you put it back on the stove and temper the, you know, the hot and the cold liquids? And she said, yeah, I tempered it and then I poured it in a bowl and put it in the refrigerator. I said, nope, you missed a vital part. There's our timer. I'm going to shut this gas off. And I told her that most likely she missed the most vital part, which is putting it back inside the pan like this now and bringing it back to a boil. So, as you can see here, this is nice and thick. Let me go and get a bowl. We're going to transfer it into a bowl and we're going to cover it, and it's going to sit overnight in the refrigerator while it solidifies. And oh my goodness, I don't even have to taste it because I just have the memories from when I was younger and my mom used to make this. This is 1/4 of the recipe that my mom would make. She would literally make an entire gallon of milk. There were 7 of us growing up, plus her and my dad, and my grandmother lived with us. And forget it, this did not last. She'd be lucky to get it in the refrigerator to cool for a couple of hours, let alone overnight, because it was just one of our absolute favorite desserts. But I am going to taste it just to make sure that I didn't miss any ingredient and that everything is as it should be. Just like I remember. Oh my goodness. I could literally drink this with a straw. It is so delicious. Okay, let me get a bowl. I'm going to transfer it over into a bowl. Okay, be careful when you do this because this is very hot. You don't want it to splatter on you. Talk about that one thing that just reminds you of your childhood more than anything. And I think this would be a very, very close contender. So now, just like with any kind of custard you make, pastry, cream, anything in that family, pudding, I'm gonna go get a piece of plastic wrap. I want the plastic wrap to come in direct contact with the top of this custard because I don't want it to form a skin. And this process sometimes could be just as challenging as making the rice pudding itself. So just lift, give yourself some slack on the sides, and let it just come down. And like I said, you want it to make direct contact with the top so that it doesn't form that unpleasant rubbery skin that will form. And then I like to just leave, you know, a little gap in 1 or 2 spaces so that the steam can release. And that's it. I'm gonna go put this in the refrigerator, and I'm gonna hope that I can get back to it in time to show you guys what it looked like finished before my family gets to it. So I have a quick tip here. I have that vanilla bean pod that we used, and I want to just open it up a little bit, and I have 2 cups of sugar here, and I'm just going to put this inside the sugar, bury it down inside there. I'm going to put a lid on it. I'm going to stick this in my cabinet, and the vanilla that's left on there is going to infuse in the sugar. And then you can use this vanilla sugar for a lot of things. You can use it in your coffee or your tea. You can use it if you're making cinnamon sugar for toast or for the top of a cake, or really for anything you would use regular sugar for, you could use the vanilla sugar. That's it. Try not to waste anything in the kitchen, and a bean pod is no exception. And there's another great use for one of those recycled jars. Okay, our rice pudding is done. And I'll tell you something funny. It's only been about 3 hours, but my husband and my daughter took this bowl and put it outside in the snow. That's how badly they wanted it to chill. So I'm going to make them some cinnamon whipped cream. So I have a bowl here. I have a jar here. I'm going to put 1 cup of cream in there. That's heavy whipping cream. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar. And then to that, I'm just going to put a few shakes of cinnamon. And then I'm going to put the lid on. Oh, that's not the right lid. Where'd my lid go? Here it is. Put my lid on. And I'm going to shake it until the cream is whipped. And this was actually the vanilla infused sugar. I cannot believe it's only been a couple of hours and it smells already so strongly of vanilla. So that's going to be a treat. So let me go ahead and tighten this jar and shake this up. And then we're going to have some cinnamon whipped cream to go on top of our rice pudding. Okay. That was a workout. So feel free, if you don't want to shake it, to pull out your immersion blender. Look at that. Oh boy. Can you see that? Ooh. Okay, let's put that to the side. That's going to be our topping. And I'm going to take this off. Now look how nice it comes off. And this is so creamy. Look at this. Look at how creamy and delicious. Look at that. Oh boy. Let's get some in this dish so we can try it. Oh, let me show you something real quick. What my mom used to do is she would put this in a pretty dish. This is just in a regular old, storage bowl, but my mom would put this in a pretty casserole dish. And then she would take cinnamon. This was like her signature thing when it came to rice pudding. She would smooth it out on top, and then she would take the cinnamon and she'd go across it, oops, like that. She'd make lines going this way, then she'd turn it, and she'd make lines going this way. And it would make like little diamonds. And in a casserole bowl, that would look really pretty. Just clean the sides up just a little bit. Look a little nicer. But anyway, that's how my mom used to do it. This isn't going to last long enough to get prettied up and stuck on a table, because we're going to dig into this tonight. Look at this. Oh boy. I want to try this just by itself before I put any whipped cream on it. It's just like I remember it. Oh my God, it's so good. But now I put some of that cinnamon whipped cream on top, and that's just going to take it to a whole nother level. Let's see. I'm gonna let my husband finish filming this so I can eat this. That's it, guys. This is probably that one dessert that reconnects me with my childhood, makes me think of, and of course, miss my mom. And it's something that I love to share just because it has so many good memories attached to it. So get in the kitchen, do yourself a favor, give this a try. Make sure you come back and see us again, because I promise there's always something good cooking in Aunt Susie's kitchen. Ciao for now.